questions.
Okay, let's see. All right, it looks like we are live. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on your Thursday. We know there's a lot of places you could be, probably a lot of other Zoom meetings you could be in, and you are joining us here at Vanderbloemen to talk about what does it look like to begin the conversation of reopening the church, specifically around children's ministry, family ministry, student ministry, NextGen ministry. And we here at Vanderbloemen have pulled together brilliant minds who are all passionate about this topic to help you think through and ask the right questions regarding reopening your children's ministry. So I'm Holly Tate. I'm the Vice President of Business Development here at Vanderbloemen. Make sure that you ask your questions in the comment section below. We are going to leave plenty of time for questions. We want to hear from you. So definitely make sure that you engage with us by leaving your questions in the comment section. And I'm going to hand it over to you, William, so you can take it from here and moderate today's panel.
Well, I'm on this because I was a children's pastor for, no experience. So I'm going to try and be quiet for the next hour and listen to my friends. I've been an associate pastor. I've hopelessly tried to convince people to volunteer in the worst possible ways over the years, but don't have nearly the experience these folks do. I will say, when we started the website reopeningchurch.com, we started taking questions, and for almost 2 weeks now, we've had that site up. And the most consistent questions we get are about what are we going to do with children's ministry? Because I have 7 children, and when they're younger, I don't know that you can keep 7-year-old boys 6 feet apart. I don't think there's a way to do it. So, so what do you do with all that? So let's take a minute and go around the horn. I'm going to go around just based on where people are on my screen. So Sam, give us a quick introduction of where you are and where you're serving.
Yeah, my name is Sam Luce. I'm the pastor of families at Redeemer Church in upstate New York. And I'm the kids pastor. I was a kids pastor there for 14 years, then campus pastor. Now I'm serving as the pastor of families at all of our locations. I oversee kids and youth for all of our throughout. And we have our churches are located in different cities in upstate New York. So Albany, Utica, Syracuse, and in that region in upstate.
And what would be the size of a normal site that you have?
They range. I mean, we have like a startup in Syracuse, and then our largest site is the first one that opens, and that's about probably about 1,100 on an average weekend. And then the other ones are like 5 and 400, and then 200.
Great. So that'll translate well to a lot of people. Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are.
All right, I'm Julia Tucker, and I serve as the NextGen pastor at Transformation Church. I get to serve there on our executive team, and I oversee our kids ministry, our youth ministry, as well as our internship. And so been fortunate to do that for a few years now. But I've been a part of, from a staff or leadership standpoint, I've been a part since our lead pastors came in. And so we're, again, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but our church on a Sunday attendance is somewhere between 3,500 to 3,700 on a given weekend, prior to COVID, of course.
Which, just so people understand, Julia's been there 5 years and they've grown tenfold in 5 years. So 350 to 3,500, pretty awesome story. It's one of the better kept secrets in the American part of the church. Jess, tell us about your hair.
Yeah, I was telling the group right before we got on that Georgia opened up, and there's salons, and they opened up movie theaters and bowling alleys and salons and nail techs, I guess. And so I was the first one to call. So I have pink hair today because I'm excited about my pink hair. This is my 19th year in family ministry. Started when I was 19, so giving away my age there a little. The first couple years were spent planning churches with my dad. My dad was a church planner. So at one point I was part of a church with 4 people, me and my mom and dad and my boyfriend who became my husband. And, but the last, for 8 years, I spent at Elevation, 6 of those on the executive team with my husband overseeing family ministry. So I always kind of joke, like, wherever you are, 4 people to 30,000, like, I've been there. We may have gone through at Elevation, we may have gone through that season pretty quickly, but man, this has been the joy and the honor of my life is just to serve ministers and to serve families across the church world. So I'm a ministry coach now with Generis, and so I get to talk to ministry leaders all over the globe, and that has been, again, an honor and privilege to do. So thanks for having me today. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Jana.
Hello.
Hey.
Well, the salons in Nashville, I just need to tell everybody, are not open. And so it is a big deal for me to not be wearing a baseball cap right now. So that's how much I care about our audience, and for me to wear earrings. So happy to be here. My name is Jana McGruder, and I lead the kids ministry area at LifeWay Christian Resources in Nashville. We have the joy of stewarding and creating resources for churches around the globe, including the Gospel Project and Vacation Bible School and lots of other things. We also have a family ministry conference called ETCH, which stands for Equipping the Church and Home. And yeah, that's just a little snapshot of what we do. My background is in children's ministry and education in Texas. So I'm a Texan and Tennessean dual resident is what I like to say. So that's a little about me.
Are you UT or A&M? I've known you a long time.
Baylor University.
Baylor, yeah. I've got one. I got a sophomore downstairs right now.
All right.
Supposedly working, but yeah. So Jana was at the Austin Stone. Little known fact: Matt Carter. If you're a Texas person at all, Matt Carter was a Yell leader at A&M and then planted a church in Austin.
Which is hostile territory for an Aggie to go plant a church.
It's serious, and he told me it was all about unreached people groups.
We shouldn't probably get into that.
yeah. Well, let's move on then. So, Justin, other side of the Red River, tell us about you and where you are.
Yep, I'm on the right side of the Red River. Yeah, my name is Justin Edge. I am at Life.Church. I oversee all of our kids ministries, so everything from birth up through 6th grade. I've been here for 13 years. We're a multi-site church under Pastor Craig Rochelle's leadership. And like Sam, we're in the same boat. We've got churches from all kinds of different sizes. We actually have some locations that are portable that meet in a school, all the way to obviously some permanent campuses. And so our kids ministry runs from everything to, I don't know, maybe 100 kids, 150 kids on the small side. And our largest location averages about 15 to 1,600. So like most of you guys, a lot of diversity and knowledge. And man, I am super excited about this conversation that we're gonna have together and questions that are gonna come in. So William and Holly, thank you for putting this together. And it's an honor to be a part of it. Thank you.
And be sure and send the questions in. We know there are a lot of them, and we really did not do a big, long outline. We want to leave room for what you guys need to know. Quick show of hands. Is anybody meeting on site this weekend? Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the deal here. Even in Texas, where the governor said, okay, you can go ahead and meet, it's just not happening. Anybody thinking that they're going to have on-site church for Father's Day?
Is that June? Yes.
Yeah, that's June. They're having it in June this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't throw out dates to me right now. I don't even know what today is. So
yes.
What quarter it's in. So yes.
Well, months. You know, I don't even know where you get your news now, because you can read two completely different versions of everything from what are supposedly respected sources. But I'll just call it the Tiggers and Eeyores about opening up, right? The Tiggers have said Mother's Day, and the Eeyores are saying Father's Day, and that's moved a little bit. But I don't know that I'm hearing a lot of difference between the conversation. I'm hearing a lot of people say Father's Day, and that's not going to be long from now. So, Justin, let me start with you. What are you guys doing right now to prepare for whenever you open up? And I'm talking about like tactical, get ready for children's ministry.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the big thing that we're trying to continue to focus on right now is help communicating to parents what our purpose is and what our goal is. And so for us, our purpose and goal is to open back up whenever we feel like it is best to open up for our kids. And so when you talk about Mother's Day, Father's Day, etc., we're trying to find out when is best for us. And we really try to go off our guidelines of our government and stuff. But when it comes down to really practical things that we're doing, and this is going to sound silly, but we're putting our orders in right now for hand sanitizer. We're putting our orders in right now for cleaner because someone who works with us, he's like, we don't want to be at the end of the checkout line. We want to be at the beginning of the checkout line. So even if you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do, what you want to do, our main thing right now is, man, we're ordering stuff. We're processing a lot of things. We're processing how do we come back strong? Because a big part of what we want to do is not just come back and go, okay, we really don't have a plan. We want to have a strong plan coming in. Everything from what are we thinking about for curriculum? How do we do check-in properly? How do we do checkout properly? We're just thinking through all of those things. We're a little further off whenever we're going to open up LifeKids. But as far as a church opening up, we're actually on the sooner side. So we're going to open up our church buildings first and then bring in LifeKids at a later date. So we're a little further out from that.
Is that true? A quick show of hands. How many of you are going to open worship services without segmented kids ministry first? Here, Julia, no. Okay. Well, we're hearing the same sorts of things here. So go ahead, Jana.
No, sorry. I should have used my little hand emoji. The churches, our team talks to a lot of churches of all shapes and sizes and all across the country. And we have heard that as a commonality is that a lot of churches are planning to open up, quote, big church first, and then get that right. And then slowly, surely open up children's ministry, NextGen ministry.
Well, and the good news that I'm hearing from, and I think Jana probably has her finger on the pulse of what I call the normal church, maybe more than any of the rest of us. And the normal church is about 120 people that gather on a weekend. And like the First Baptist Church of Slap Out, Alabama, which is a town in Alabama. I pastored there, so I know, what they're going to be doing. And one thing that I'm hearing is, you know what? Our church hadn't been half full in a decade, so we can have everybody and it'll be just fine. So I'm hearing a lot of people say we're going to stack the kids. But now, Jen, are you hearing anything about what that means for worship? Because I know Jesus loves the little children, but I don't always love the little children in worship. So what are you hearing people doing to actually make that a functional hour?
Well, just a couple of things that come to mind for churches who have been kind of on the forefront or most eager and live in areas where it's going to be more feasible for them to open. I think we have to acknowledge that even in a forum like this, is that we're kind of having a national conversation about some broad and general best practices, but this is absolutely a localized, contextualized conversation for where you live, So for example, I'll use my city that I live in is Nashville, and there are 95 counties in the state of Tennessee. The governor is opening 89 of them. The 5 that he is not include Nashville metro area, which is where LifeWay resides and where I live, Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga. So the metro areas of Tennessee. And so that said, it can get really confusing. And I'm sure our listeners, our watchers would agree that, I don't know about y'all, I'm listening to presidential press releases, governors talk about opening. And then now I'm most engaged with the Nashville mayor because he has the most to say about where I live right now, where I go to church, where I work. And so just saying that up front, we're hearing, from people all over, the ones that are going to try and open church, the broader church community before children's ministry are saying things like, we're going to allow families to sit together and then have a social distance from the next family over or the next couple or the next person over. And whether they're doing that with painter's tape between chairs or on pews even, they're going to open their doors to families and see how that goes.
But that sounds like we won't have to do the God-forsaken children's sermon in the middle of the message where all the children gather at the.
Yes.
You want to talk about the short straw when you're the associate pastor in a small church. I have drawn that short straw so many times. I've looked around on Saturday night. Where is Jesus in an object lesson? Is he here? Is he, so not that, not gathering down on the pew steps.
No, but that has been acknowledged, to have a little something for kids, but just stay right there with your parents. Do not come down to the stairs or the stage and let the pastor sit down in the middle of a, close proximity. So that's been addressed. Those are some ideas I've heard. Just anything to help families start establishing a cadence of going back to church, I think is the heartbeat behind that. So that when they do, it's just really difficult and tricky for children's ministries to open simultaneously, because there are a lot more things to think through, which I'm sure we'll get into.
That's good. Sam, you had your hand up.
Yeah. For us, so we have a 3-tier sort of approach that we're using. And partly what happened was in New York, when we got shut down, we had one service that we could do before the shutdown went into effect. So what happened was we lost all of our volunteers but 2. Said that I don't feel comfortable coming. And so what that did is that gave us sort of a look at what opening will probably look like for us. Is that we're going to have issues, and it worked out because we had some people come in, and there wasn't as many kids, obviously, since so it worked out. So for us, what we're doing is we're going to start with no kids ministry to see how many volunteers feel like coming, feel comfortable coming, because I think you have to not force volunteers to come. You know what I'm saying, and or not guilt them into coming and say, okay, here's what we're doing. And also, kids don't social distance. So at the very beginning, what you have to do is, our governor said, kids that are 3 years old have to wear masks, but our governor doesn't have a 3-year-old, and nor has he been in the proximity of a 3-year-old in a long time, because that's not going to happen. So, so for us, what we're doing is we're going to get everyone together. We're going to have everybody come together. We're going to worship together. They've been worshiping at home. For us, family worship is a big deal for our church. Families at home doing church together, and reading scripture, singing hymns, and praying together. So they're used to sitting together as a family and doing that. So we're gonna do that until we see how many families come, until we see how many volunteers are willing to come back. Then we're gonna move. Then we've been doing a live TV show that we have been doing on the weekend, and we're gonna keep doing that through the end of the year for families who don't feel comfortable coming. And what we're gonna do after that, the next phase for us is gonna look like it's going to look like us they're going to stay with their families during song singing, then go after that down to a large room where they watch the TV show together. And so that is a way for us to do minimal volunteers and maximum amount of kids. And then from there, the way we're handling social distancing is through room closures and room size, making them smaller, because you're just not going to get, and I don't even, honestly, we could talk about it, but I don't know if obsessing over social distancing is actually even good for kids. So
Can I throw out a really practical idea about if you're going to have kids in the worship service?
Volunteers don't feel forced to come back, until they're ready.
Yeah. Jess.
Yeah. So I agree with Jana completely. I do think we're going to have some family-friendly elements. I don't think that the children have to be involved in every aspect of the worship service. But I do think we're going to have some family-friendly elements. But maybe that means that the person who's doing the giving moment literally brings their child on stage and holds hands with them while they talk, just to give another focal point for the kids who are there. Like, oh, that's my friend and they're on stage, that type of thing. So I think it would be good to have some family-friendly elements. I am not typically for a keep kid busy kit when you're going into the worship service, because I think most kids need to be in the children's ministry. But in this season, I think that's a good idea. I think that you can put something together with.
I wanted to ask you about that. They're going to have to be disposable kits, right? You can't reuse anything. So what do you actually put in that kit that you can dispose of and not run up a giant bill your senior pastor is going to freak out over?
Yeah, so I mean, I would think of like a checklist of words that they could listen for in the sermon, and so if they get them all off, then maybe they, I don't know, get some kind of prize or something, or whatever it may be. I mean, you could get really creative with it. I mean, you could even put them together
Mhm.
using gloves, and you could put a little snack in there if you're okay with that. You could put a little granola bar or something, as long as you were sanitary when you were putting it together. But yeah, I think that there's something to be said about giving them something to do, because it's going to be difficult for our senior pastors to preach a message with 20, 40, 50, 100 to hundreds of children, depending on what size of church you are. That's going to be difficult. And it's also going to affect the quality of the service. And when we invite people back into our buildings, into our auditoriums, into our sanctuaries, we want it to feel like coming home. Oh, we're back, and we want it to be as comfortable as we possibly can. We want to limit distractions. It's really hard to limit distractions with kids in the room. So I think that's a really practical way that we could just help families facilitate this new reality.
That's great. John, you were just able to join us. Tell us a little bit about where you are, and then answer me this. We were talking before the call about the weather. So here in Texas, I'm hearing like normal sized churches saying, we're going to have kids come in and they're going to stay till a certain amount of time, and then we're going to let them go outside, and we're going to try and keep them apart, and we're going to have creative games and that sort of thing. Is that happening in your context, or churches like yours? So tell us a little bit where you are. And since you showed up a little bit late, we're just going to throw a flat foot question at you, and you've got to answer.
I apologize, technology, just when you think it's working, your
Yes.
computer locks up. And I found out that my 5-year-old at home is the reason it locked up. So he actually,
I would go with China.
Okay, or China. So I'm going to go with my son at home. So I apologize to being late to the meeting. And William, that's a great question. And one of the things that we have thought about here, I'm located in Kansas at a church called Westside Family Church, and we're thinking about that. And every state is different. Our governor is supposedly making an announcement tonight, extending the stay-at-home order. So every state is, Jess, got a haircut. I'm not getting a haircut for a while. Wait, no, actually, my kids aren't getting a haircut for a while. And so I think we just really have to take into consideration every aspect of where we're located, the church size. And for us, we're a larger church. And so we have to look at it in terms of what's the best ROI, the return on our investment, and thinking through, okay, if we gather families, what's the benefit if we can only gather so many, versus continue to build the digital platform for our kids and our families. I do like this, though. I heard this morning on Orange, the guy that runs Compassion International, he said, innovate to the original. And I want us to think about that for a minute as church leaders, as kids and student ministry leaders. The origin of the church started with the family, right? And so this is, no matter what size you are, this is a great opportunity to go back and rethink how we create those family experiences, and really even challenge our senior leaders. We have a senior pastor who is, he loves family. And so he's committed to, he said, hey, let's bring our best ideas together. Let's figure out how even they may have to adjust how they teach their sermons. And then also, I think it's time to think with this idea. Church leaders who are thinking about getting back to normal, I think that's the wrong approach. I think it's now time for us to really step back, slow down. When this all started, we had to react, right? And now it's time to respond. And so I think for us, we're looking at every possible way. We're looking at our internal spaces. So every environment we have in our building is now, I call green space. So it is up for ministry grabs, and we're going to figure out collectively what to do. And I think churches of any size really need to look and say, okay, maybe for a season you can't do something in the basement, but you could redesign and makeshift some areas that you could do kids ministry. Maybe your student ministry looks different for a season. And so, and then even outdoors, William, right now it's 72 degrees and sunny. It's the weather here is pretty nice. And so we are going to look for taking, for example, our students. We're gonna pop a tent when the time is right in phase 3, 4, and we're gonna move them outside for a little bit. One, they like that, and two, they need that. And then we're gonna take our student spaces and turn them into kid spaces and figure out, okay, everything has to be rethought and looked at, and then really evaluate as a church and church leaders to say, let's figure it out. And then also, I think Sam was saying about his volunteers. This will be no greater time to engage parents, to lead their kids spiritually and to lead others.
Well, I want to pivot to the volunteer conversation. I will say, I think you're right. I think some people are saying everything's going to change. It's never going to be the same. And, Justin, don't tell your pastor this, who's a friend of mine, but it's not all going to be online forever. Sorry, Life.Church. There will be people gathering. It's just in our nature. But I think those who are saying, well, it's just going to go back to normal. I'm going to try and share my screen to share with you the little GIF somebody sent over to me about pastors that think it's going to be the way it's always been. They're going to be kind of like that. Dinosaurs shoveling snow in the ice age. So sorry, got to use a visual prop in a children's ministry thing, right? So Julia, talk to me about this. So a long time ago, when we started doing children's pastor searches, I realized that I really shouldn't be looking for people that like kids. I should be looking for people that like volunteers and can recruit them, right? So that's like the secret, right? And what are you doing right now to train volunteers for what's coming as a new normal? I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. Maybe you're not, maybe somebody else wants to jump in, but Julia, tell us what y'all are thinking about mobilizing volunteers for a new children's ministry.
Yeah, so we actually came into COVID under a lot of new things that we were doing. So in our children's ministry, working to do a complete overhaul. And so that's just from our structure to our training, all of those different things. And our theme as a church this year is stronger. That's the word that God gave to our lead pastor. And so we are kind of doubling down and seeing what does the new normal look like as we come back. So we've definitely done a lot of stuff online. I don't know that I've seen any children's ministry do a whole lot of things online prior to COVID. For us, we weren't that far out. And so from a volunteer standpoint, we're trying to figure out how to engage our volunteer in the new things that we are doing. And so we've started talking with them, contacting them, and also seeing within this new global structure what makes some of the new roles that will come as a result of that. I believe that volunteers want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves, and they want to be challenged. If you feel like you're called to the marketplace, but now there's a ministry opportunity where you're like, I feel called to children, I feel this, I feel like it's our duty to make sure that we don't give them low-level things to do in a sense of plug and play, but that we actually give them something that helps them be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so again, right now, we're looking at what does our global church look like? What does our ground church look like? And building out the right structure and inviting some of our volunteers into that. This past week, I started reaching out to some of our children's volunteers to say, hey, would you be interested in being a part of some of the new things that we're doing? We did some recordings for our memory verse, and it's very simple, but our kids haven't seen our volunteers in a while. We're doing a family movie night and just trying to get them involved and see that we're doing some new things. And when we come back into our location, whenever that is, that there's a little bit more structure and they're feeling the shift before we come back into our physical building.
That's good. Hey, Holly, I know you've got a question that's come in, at least one, and also wanted to take a minute. We're about halfway through to just do a 30-second, get people up to speed on what else is going on.
Yeah, well, we're getting a ton of questions, which is awesome. And we want to encourage everybody to keep your eye on reopeningchurch.com, where we've been posting all of our replays of this week's Facebook Live series for every department of the church, including this one. So this will be there on reopeningchurch.com. And we're going to continue to have many, many resources all about this topic because it's changing on a daily, sometimes hourly basis for all of us. John, you mentioned Jimmy, Compassion International CEO. William actually did an interview with him about, how do you lead not only during a crisis, but then what lessons can you learn to then take as you lead through and beyond a crisis? And that interview is there on reopeningchurch.com. So I want to encourage everybody to check that out. We also have a lot of folks that are watching that probably have churches that also have schools associated with them. And we have reopeningschool.com, which actually leads, William, to we've been getting a ton of questions about Vacation Bible School. Everybody wants to talk about VBS. So let's make sure we commit some time to hearing from folks about what they're planning for Vacation Bible School.
Jana, I want to kick that down to you because VBS screams LifeWay. So what in the world is going on with VBS? I mean, all the moms I know, when we had little kids, we went to First Methodist for a week and then First Baptist for a week. And then.
Okay. Doubted yourself. Okay. I know you're tight. So yeah, first things first, really, we're looking at the VBS season right now, and that could happen in some kind of capacity before the actual official reopening of the church. And so our team has felt really passionate about equipping churches to look at VBS in a different way this summer. So we have a URL that's really easy to remember, lifeway.com/4 ways. We've identified 4 strategies that we think could work in any kind of circumstance. So certainly one is the traditional VBS. And if you live in a state or a county or a city where that is possible, by all means, go for it. Not many of us do, but that certainly is one strategy. The other one is consider doing a neighborhood backyard kind of strategy. So I just got off the phone with Mariners Church in California, and they're talking about, mobilizing 400 families to operationalize doing a VBS in a backyard kind of way, because you can have smaller groups which will hopefully, abide by local authority rules, back to contextualization of what your local governing authorities are saying in your community. So neighborhood backyard kind of style. And then another strategy would be to think of just an alternate way to do VBS in terms of perhaps meeting at the church. An easy low-hanging fruit there would be just postpone it to the end of the summer and do a back to school bash kind of thing. There still could be some unknowns for some communities where that wouldn't work either. A lot of schools have fall breaks. And so that certainly could be something where you save your VBS materials and do it in fall break. So just different time here, space it out over 5 different Sundays, Sunday nights, or another time in the week. So just thinking differently about how you gather. And then the last one would be an at-home virtual type VBS, which is where the space we're kind of all living in right now. So the good news about that is we've kind of triaged that, and many children's ministry leaders and church leaders in general have figured out how to stream, what's the best platform, how can I take a video of myself and then put a video, of a Bible story all together, stream it out to my families, equip them with a discussion guide, those kinds of things. Use those learnings and produce a virtual at-home VBS where you're encouraging families to do something special. Listen, I'm a mom right now, and we parents are looking for things to do. And guys, summer hasn't even started yet. Today is still April. So I keep having to remind myself that we're not even in a summer month yet. So it is going to be a long summer. We don't know if swimming pools are going to be open. We don't know it. Certainly lots of camps and things like that are just gonna look really different or not happen at all. So we're gonna be looking for creative ways. Parents, families are gonna be looking for creative ways to do something special. And if as church leaders, we can come alongside, and really going back to family ministry, so many of us preach this of parent discipleship and equipping parents to be the spiritual leaders of their homes. This is that moment, guys, is, put our money where our mouth is, if that's the right saying, because the time is now. And so our role in this particular time is to truly equip our parents to do something while they have the time, while their kids are going stir crazy and need something to do. Vacation Bible School is a perfect opportunity to do that. And so I encourage listeners to check out lifeway.com/4ways. I realize I am a resource provider. It doesn't, it has nothing to do with our particular content and theme. You can utilize these 4 strategies with something you develop yourself or something that you get anywhere. So
I agree with everything except one little thing, Jana. There is no money in children's ministry, so you can't put your money where your mouth is.
That's true. That's true. Not right now, at least.
So let's, my teenager, by the way, during our family devotions last night said, I wonder if this is going to be like the longest summer ever in my life. And, fortunately, this has not hit children, right? So I think if I'm a parent and I'm taking my kids, I'm not real worried about my kid getting sick, but I am worried, is that adult volunteer clean?
Sure.
Like, are they checked?
Yeah.
So Justin, are you guys doing anything, planning ahead to say, okay, we've temperature checked all of the volunteers, or what are you doing to give parents assurance of mind? Is that?
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, and kind of going back to that original thing, that's why we're decided to open up LifeKids a little bit later, because we want parents to come in and feel safe and comfortable and know what you're saying is that the leaders that are in the room are good to go. And so we're potentially looking at that phase 3 down the road. But the things that we're looking at right now, and of course it all can change by the time you get to phase 3, is we want to definitely have our leaders be wearing the masks. Some things that I would think about if you're opening up kids a little bit sooner, we're actually, feel free to, it's going to be a tough thing, a tough conversation, but asking them 4 questions before they even come in, asking them a couple questions to make sure, have you been sick in the past 14 days? Have you been around someone who's been ill? Asking some of those preemptive questions to know kind of the people that are coming in. But we want to make sure our leaders have masks on. You want to make sure a temperature gun thing to be able to scan that. Some things that I wrote down that might be helpful for you is if you're doing a check-in, check-out system and you actually do a pen and paper, maybe it's potentially a good idea for that leader to be the person who's always writing instead of letting the parent constantly touch that pen over and over. And here's the funny thing is kids are going to come back. They're going to be excited about coming back in your kids ministry. But the scary thing is they're going to be walking up and they may know Mr. Justin like this right here, but they may not know Mr. Justin like that. And so take a couple little extra steps to show kids that you care about them and then you're here for them. So for instance, maybe take a little snapshot of your leaders and post that picture out on the front of the room. So when they walk in, they know that. Maybe having hand sanitizer stations right there, clear in front and center. Another thing that we're even processing through is, and how our curriculum is set up and all of our content is free. You can go to open.life.church and get all of that. But in our Bible app for kids content, our first 20 minutes is kind of that free play time. And someone mentioned, trying to get 2 and 3-year-olds to social distance is not going to happen. But with that phase 3, when they get more adapt to coming in those rooms, they're going to be touching those toys and messing with those toys. So what we're going to do is while the curriculum is actually happening, the video's on the screen, we're going to pull those toys out, have them cleaned, and then brought back in. But that's step 1 you can do. Step 2 you can do is actually have a sign put on the door. It says, these toys were cleaned at 1:44 p.m., just to give a little bit of reassurance. Another small thing is we actually, for all of our kids who get their diaper changed, we actually put a little sticker on the diaper that says, "Your kid been changed with love." So that whenever
Is that branded?
It has LifeKids, but you can take the sticker off. Yeah, you can take the LifeKids logo off. And so anyways, they put that sticker on the diaper, and when those parents go home and they change their kid, that's just another reminder. So even taking that potentially and creating a little sticker, creating a little sign or something that says, hey, your kid was in a clean and safe environment today. It's all about over communication, because we can talk about it, but parents don't know that we're doing that. So make sure you're externally communicating. When you come into church this weekend, here's what you're going to expect. And the interesting thing for us is we're going to continue to hit what we're talking about. Is we feel like right now the safest place, that best place, is going to be for kids to stay online. But what it's going to do, if a parent is choosing to take their kid in the experience room, they know what to expect. And so whatever you're talking about, help them know this is what's going to come. You just don't want a parent to show up with the kid thinking that the kids ministry is open, and then they have to take them into church like, oh, this is totally not what I was expecting for us to happen. So man, over communicate on that front side is going to be key.
That's really good. I imagine there's a new volunteer role that's pretty easy, maybe even a student could do, but like checking kids in through F1 or whatever you're using, like touching those pads. I'm guessing you guys would all agree one volunteer to touch the pad, right? Am I right about that? Okay. Jess, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So, gosh, Justin, that's such great info. And like, that's what when I've been talking with ministry leaders around the country, these are the really, really practical things that we've been talking about. And honestly, like half of what you said was what I was already thinking about sharing, just to kind of build on it, a couple things. You may want to, I'm not typically about, I want parents at the doors of classrooms because I want the interaction between the volunteers. But again, this is a totally different season. Do we limit exposure by walking kids back? Like, so do we no touch temporal thermometer check? We ask the questions like Justin mentioned, and then one volunteer walks them back. Well, now we've limited the exposure down that hallway by tens, 20s, hundreds of people. As far as the disinfecting in the classrooms, if you don't have enough volunteers to come in and clean them afterwards, you could just separate your toys. So you could have different bins of toys. So you could, you take half of your toys and you put them in a bin, you clean them, you put them in a closet, and then you pull the clean bin out and you're good to go. One thing I think is going to be really crucial is that all of those classrooms are going to have to be disinfected between services. And it gets really messy for a lot of churches who have more than one service, because we are receiving kids before we've actually, checked all the kids out. And so it gets really messy. If you don't remove all of the kids from the classroom, you can't actually disinfect the room. And so if you boil that all the way down, we're going to have to add a little bit of extra time in between our services to fully disinfect that classroom and allow it to dry, because the disinfectant doesn't actually work until it's dry. And so we're going to have to do that. And that may mean that we have to adjust our service times as a church as a whole, just to be able to keep those environments clean and sanitized. One final thing too, just practical, we typically don't pull our wellness policy out until we have a rule breaker. So some kids, like, their nose is running, they're coughing, we page mom or dad from the service, hey, I just want to let you know they're running a fever, and we ask that you not bring your child for at least 48 hours after that. That's typically when we pull it out. In this season, your wellness policy needs to be posted at every door, at every check-in station. It needs to be everywhere. And it's not for the rule breakers. It's for the people who are concerned about the rule breakers. And so just make sure that is clearly visible. And maybe you even have, like he said, like that, maybe you have a wellness agreement that if you're a smaller church, that may be easier for you, but maybe you even have a wellness agreement where they agree. That would, if I'm a parent, I am a parent of 4, but if I'm coming in and you are going to the extreme measures, it's going to make me feel comfortable. I've been telling everybody that I feel like right now, as far as the disinfectant and the measures that we are taking to sanitize our environments, it's kind of like stage makeup. Like, my daughter's a competitive dancer, and when we're getting her ready in the bathroom, she looks like a clown. Her cheeks are too rosy, her eyes are too dark, her lips are like, and she looks like a clown. And then when she gets on stage, it's beautiful and it's the right amount of makeup. right now, that's how we have to approach this. If you feel like you're hitting it on the mark, you're probably not doing enough. If you feel like you've gone to the extreme, you're probably exactly where you need to be.
That's good. We've got a question come in that Holly's going to shoot to one of you in just a second, but I want to prep with this. We're going to do a rapid fire toward the end. I want each of you to give me one idea for the mom and dad that are about to lose their mind trying to deal with their kids. And I mean, my buddy who does family law, which is the worst name for what he does, he actually is a divorce attorney. He said, we're going to have a lot of business after this is over. It's kind of sad, but so what would be your one piece of discipling advice toward kids? So think about that. That's going to be a rapid fire in a minute. But Holly, shoot a question out to one of our panelists.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear from Sam, Julia, John, Justin, those of you that are on the front lines of this. If you can speak into lots of questions about separation anxiety. So families have been together, kids have been with their parents all day, every day. How are you guys thinking through how to deal with the potential separation anxiety between kiddos and their parents? So Sam, you want to take a shot at answering that one first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that is definitely going to be reality. Plus, again, see, kids have in today's day and age are exposed to way more reality. Like I knew nothing about China when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? And these kids know about Wuhan. You know what I'm saying? They know about specific places in China. So they know more information. The more that you know, right, the more potential you have for anxiety and worry. And what I think we have to do is we have to, again, like everyone's saying, is we have to over communicate to parents. We have to prepare parents. We have to give them, again, point them to the gospel. Because again, what this really comes down to, really ultimately comes down to this, is that we want to be safe. We want to be all these things. But the reality is this, is one of the things that we do in our church is we do catechism. So it's question and answer format. And the first catechism question that we have all our kids memorize is what is my only comfort in life and death? And in a situation like this is so important for us to think about, because this is what it really comes down to. Where do I find comfort?
That's
because
so
kids want comfort, parents want comfort, everybody wants comfort. And the answer is, I am not my own, but I belong to God. So what we have to do is disciple our parents so they can disciple their kids, right? The way that parents are primary disciplers of their kids is if they're being discipled, because so many parents don't disciple their kids because they're not being discipled. And so what we have to do for their parents is say this is what we do. The reason, because when you say everything's going to change, there's going to be, it depends on what you think about the church. I think really what it comes down to is there's practices will change that, but the reality of what the church has been is and always was and will always be will never change. This is the reality. Our message will not change. The necessity of us gathering together will never change. Christianity is not a set of ideas that we ascribe to. It is about God who became flesh and dwelt amongst us. It's inherently incarnational. And so for us, like, gathering together has to be something that we hold precious. It has to be something that we can, and so what we have to do is we have to help our kids understand that. And part of it is by limiting exposure to news to your kids. Like, I don't talk to my kids about the virus. We talk about homeschool. We talk about all these things. We don't talk about the virus. I don't like over pump into my kids, you need to stay away from people. I just say, listen, we need to wash our hands. We need to be wise. But here's the reality, is that we have a good, gracious, caring, omnipotent, powerful God who takes care of us. And we can put all of our trust and all of our hope in him. And no matter what happens, he always does what's right. And so what that does, that gives them confidence. And I think you have to give kids confidence in the right thing. You have to protect them from overexposure to stuff. Everybody's crazy ideas about that they don't even know, nobody knows what they're talking about, honestly, if you watch the news. So you have to protect them from that. But then you also have to prepare them for, hey, so we're going back to church. We're going to see our friends. We're going to worship together. And here's what we're going to do is we're going to wash our hands before we come. We're going to use sanitizer. But you know what we're going to do is we're going to worship together. We're going to show the love of God to each other in tangible, practical ways. And I think that's what you have to do to prepare that anxiety is limit the information they go, but also be actively discipling them. And one last thing, this is sort of connected. We're talking about volunteers. This is just something that I think would be helpful for all churches. Everybody struggles with volunteers. So what we're doing at our church is we're preparing, by having parents do family worship at home and doing the different things that we're having them do, we're showing them what we do on the weekends. At the end, we're going to recruit all our parents. Say, you're already a small group leader. You've been doing it for 4 months. So which weekend would you like to start helping in? So
That's awesome.
it's a great opportunity to recruit volunteers. Is in that. So
That's fantastic. That's so good.
great.
And I love the Heidelberg Catechism. That's one of my favorites. It made me think, our family, when we were looking for devotions, we went to YouVersion, Justin, and I was looking at plans because we do 1 year Bible like every year. We're really boring. But like, what are the top plans? And like, I don't know if it's still true, but 2-3 weeks ago, of the top 20 plans on YouVersion, like 19 of them were about dealing with anxiety. It was like, wow, okay. So are you guys making curriculum shifts as you think about reopening, or is it just move on ahead?
William, I just want to touch base on the whole idea of as ministry leaders, we need to make sure that that we're not alarming parents, but that we are affirming and passing peace to them, when they're coming into our environments. And then also, I do think, what I've seen with a lot of parents and where kids are becoming anxious or reacting is there's a fine line between, hey, don't touch them, don't touch that, and so we have to be very careful because, that can trigger for them something new that they never experienced before. And we're going to have to undo some of those things. And that's why I do think phasing in, having kids with their families, I think for larger churches, that's going to be probably how those things unfold. But then for other smaller churches, making sure that creating space to have those conversations when you're with those kids. So in other words, rethinking what you're teaching on Sunday and leading with a question versus an answer. I think that's going to be really important for ministry leaders to really step back and say, hey, tell me how you feel. Tell me what this whole experience has been for you. And let them lead the conversation, because I think that's where we as ministry leaders will discover what's really happening. And so, that's where now's the time to lead with a lot more questions than, hey,
good.
here's what the Bible says.
Yeah, I'm amazed the older I get at how much I realize Jesus led with questions. It's pretty remarkable. And I do think the kids are picking up on things. Our teenagers were sitting outside playing a game the other day, and they had Spotify on their little portable speaker, and it was a COVID playlist that they'd found. And MC Hammer came on with Can't Touch This. And the 9-year-old's like, why do we keep listening to songs about not touching things? So she shouldn't have noticed it all, but they're noticing. So, all right, rapid fire. One piece of advice, and I want to start with you, Julia. Piece of advice for parents at home. They're about to lose their mind with their kid. What can they do to spiritually develop?
I have 2 kids. That's why I said I have the 3-year-old that's high energy, and I have a 10-month-old. And so some of the things that I'm learning every week is we're trying to figure out the right rhythm. But I think you have to have some key moments for kids that are that small. Like, this is what we're going to do in the morning. This is what we have in the afternoon, and to really set up our day, because we're both, me and my husband, we're both working. So I think establishing a routine and a rhythm and not breaking off of not having one, because we did that first, not having one, and it just messed us up. So
for about 2 days.
Oh man, yes. And finding opportunities and places that you can go outdoors to take your kids. And really, I love what John said. And I really think it's us knowing that we're graced for this. Like, God knew this was coming, so we're graced for this. So being able to find the space to allow your kids to talk and have conversations, showing them their friends, doing a FaceTime if you can with their teacher or something like that. I've seen that be beneficial for my son, and just letting him know like his teacher cares about him and all of those things. So I feel like those are some good things that we can do as parents at home, and push into some of these resources. Puzzles have been really good for my 3-year-old. And it is, his brain is working, and it gives me time to have a meeting or something like that. So that's what we found in our household. And to take mini breaks, those 15-minute breaks, and make a difference, because he doesn't know that we're working. What he sees is mom is not available to me. And that's not the communication that we want our children to have.
That's good. Justin, what's a piece of parental wisdom for people that are stuck?
Yeah, I think when I come back to it, I just have to go back to, it's a little bit different angle, but I just know, I want all the parents to hear this is like, you have everything that you need in your hands to accomplish all that God's called you to do. He has called you to be a parent. He has designed you to be the perfect parent for that child, for your kid. And so, man, I would just encourage you just to lean into that. The more that you just recognize that you don't have to feel, like Julia is saying, like having that structure, you don't have to fill the time from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Make life a part of your structure. And you're not alone. You are definitely not alone. You have someone around you who can support you and help you, but you have to reach out to them and be vulnerable. It's like, I just need you to pray for me right now. I just need some help right now. I'm dealing with some anxiety. I'm dealing with some, whatever it may be. And so, and another big thing is, man, I just hope your kids, just keep your kids talking to each other. Allow you and your kids to continue to connect with each other, having conversations. As long as that open dialogue is there on how they're feeling. My youngest daughter is going through a lot right now. A lot's hitting her and she needs people, but right now we can't get her connected to a lot of people face-to-face wise. And so, but I need her to keep on talking to me. I need her to keep on connecting with me. So mom and dad, you got it. Man, you got everything you need to make it happen.
John, how about you? What's a piece of parental advice?
Two things. One, I would say tag team. So, one of the things my wife did last Friday night, and I thought it was funny. She said, "Hey, you need to check your email before you go to bed." And I said, "Oh, okay." I'm sorry, this was Thursday night. And I opened the email up before I went to bed, and she said, PTO request. So basically, she said, "I'm calling off for tomorrow, and you're the substitute teacher." And it actually hit me for a moment, thinking, you know what, that was pretty sweet. And now I'm the teacher on Friday. So figuring out, in the tension of something new, figure out how to work together. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is personal care. I would encourage every mom and dad to take care of yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And so it's important to exercise, whatever it is for you. If it's quiet time, if it's, find that space and give each other permission. I tell my wife, "Hey, it's time for you to go work out, babe." Not because, because I know she needs to. I know, Jess. But I want to encourage her, and that's what parents have to remember is, hey, we are in this together, and I do think this isn't over. I mean, we have some time before us that we got to keep pressing in and just figuring out together.
Yeah, John, I tell you the thing that's helped us. Now, our kids are a little bit older than a lot of the folks that are tuned in here, but that self-care thing, we have to remember couple care. Like if we don't make time for each other each day, it'll just get swallowed. So yeah. Good word. Jana, one piece of parenting advice for us.
I know this is going to sound like the Sunday school answer, but open your Bible as a family. Don't miss this opportunity to do that. And if you haven't started, it's not too late to start. I think we're going to be doing this for a while. And what a great time to start a new habit as a family and to keep it. So I would just keep it really simple in terms of find an age appropriate Bible for your child. Just like Julia with her small young children, she wouldn't want to open up the King James Version with her 10-month-old and 3-year-old, but certainly a storybook Bible that parents can read together with young children. For our older kids and teenagers, certainly just starting the gospel, starting with a psalm, and just start reading and use that as an opportunity for kids to ask questions and to see the value that you as a parent are placing on scripture so that will translate to them as they continue to grow. So that's just my simple encouragement, and it's not too late to start.
I can't stand it when I go to church and the children's ministry runs over. So I'm going to cut us off. That's my fault for not managing the clock a little bit better. But we're going to replay this and lots of resources at reopeningchurch.com. All of it's totally free. I have told our entire team that for this season, it is serve, don't sell. That's it. So whatever we can do to resource you guys and just not worry about what that means on the backside, we're here to help you, and we'd love to see what else you want to hear about as we set up more and more resources through reopeningchurch.com. Thank you all. Appreciate you all for coming. I'm sorry to get to it right at the very end, but we'll also put up links to everybody's everything within the posts, so that if you want to learn more about coaching or about VBS or about everybody else on the call, you can have all those links. So thanks everybody for tuning in. God bless, and special blessing to those who are parenting right now.
Bye, everybody.